right, good morning, everyone. We are on the clock, so I will call this meeting to order of the DeKalb County Commissioners, and the date is August 1st, 2022. Good morning, Dottie.
Good morning. Let's talk a little bit about hiring. The Sheriff's Department has a confinement officer starting today. We're still taking applications for the confinement officers. The surveyor's office has their field inspector starting today also. The first deputy position is still available. The extension office is kind of in a holding pattern right now. Alicia had field day and they had some other, she took projects down to the state fair. So she was looking at 3 others who had applied previously. If they don't pan out, then we'll probably start from scratch on that clerk position. Development services, we have 2 interviews set up for next week. We want the office manager involved in that because the person works closely with that person and she's on vacation this week. So we have 2 set up for that part-time. Yes. Yep. Plan zoning, BZA secretary, plus extra hours in the office. The assessor has whittled down from like 128 resumes to about 6 strong candidates, and she's going to keep me informed how those are going. She had 128 applications, resumes coming through for that full-time position. Some were, like I always say, I hate to say McDonald's grill cooks, but some were that type of, resume where they really didn't have office clerical, experience, which she kind of needs. It's good to have that experience. So, so we have 6 strong candidates. Central right now is taking applications for 1 dispatcher. We had 1 leave us last week, which kind of puts them down really 2 to 3. But, working through everything. But the person who left us was actually in training. So, so we can get that one, get somebody in here, get them trained, that was kind of a disappointing one to have them leave. But I do believe it was the murder-suicide incident that we had last week that really just did it. So, and those are the sort of situations that you have in that department. So better knowing now than later. And last but certainly not least, Community Corrections has a part-time residential facilitator that we are taking applications. And and that one's going to be, I don't know, we've had some good candidates at least, apply for that. Now, whether or not they really realize what this part-time is, because I think what they want is a maximum of 28 hours a week, and they want the person to work 12 hours on Thursday and Fridays, and then work 4 hours on Wednesday evenings. So it's like, it's going to be a tough one. So, I guess if you don't ask, you don't get. So that's where we're at right now. So whether or not you're going to find, somebody who's currently working someplace else part-time, or you have a student, because when I have these type of, positions, we always go to the colleges in the area. And especially the ones that have law enforcement or criminal justice. And it's like, this is a great foot in the door kind of position. If you can work out your class schedule, that sort of thing. So that's what we have going on with our hiring. We We are working, mainly because Lindsay needs to get more familiar with our account with One America. That's the company with whom we have our county-paid short-term disability. We have the county-paid $10,000 life, accidental death, and dismemberment policies for all of our employees, and then the long-term disability policy county-paid for the Sheriff's Department, and then the voluntary long-term disability for all of our other employees. And so she's really been working quite a bit with that company, and we've been doing an audit to make sure that we're up to date on all of our numbers before we, do anything. And by do anything, it would be an open enrollment. We would allow those employees who previously waived the long-term disability, voluntary long-term disability, if they would like to reconsider. So we want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row before we, muddy the waters with any new stuff. And then speaking of audits, I've been doing an audit on our occupational codes, our EEO4 job categories, and our position classifications in LAO, just to make sure that we have those and that we actually have a reason to put them in the computer. It depends. Does Teresa use them for any reporting? I use the EEO4 for the report that we do every other year with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So we definitely have to have those job categories in. But the unemployment office needs a report every so often. I think it's quarterly. And our work comp carrier has a report that they ask for yearly. We want to make sure that we have all of our positions categorized correctly. So working on those, working with the health department on some new COVID protocols. We've had the old one out there since December of 2021. So, and there are new ones. And so Cheryl and I and Karma are working on those, and we'll, put those in place. If you are, it'll be the same sort of thing if you are, have been exposed, or if you are currently, diagnosed with COVID, those sorts of things that we've had on the website for a while. And we've had a few department heads who have asked, what is the rule now? And so we needed to look at it because the CDC has come out with new information. So my budget meeting is around 3 o'clock on August the 16th, in case anybody is interested. I really didn't, my budget is such that we're having to increase our background check budget a bit. We but we just kind of reduce a few other things, and so try to make it not too far out of whack. So far, we have not been told that our anti-harassment training is going up next year. But if it were, I would be able to move some money, I think, from one place to another. It's only $100, but it's really good. It's really effective. We have, it does the trick. So, and then. Wanted to give you an update. We have not had an in-person update with Anthem, but some of the preliminary numbers I thought you'd be interested in. Of our paid claims, 99.7% were in-network. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. We had nine high claimants were over $50,000 claims. 2.8% of our membership accounted for 46.5% of our claims.
Can you say that again,
Sure. 2.8% of our membership accounted for 46.5% of our claims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how that, not to interrupt you, do you know how that compares against a state or a national average by any chance?
It's actually pretty close to Anthem's benchmark.
Is it?
The benchmark is 1.8% of the membership, which drives 45.7% of the claims. So we're not that far off, but it's
Well,
higher than average.
You do the math, that's actually about 40% higher. Even though it's a small amount, right?
It's a small amount, yeah, but still, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, 58.8% of our claims were generated by our employees,
Okay.
and 11.3% were generated by spouses, and 27.4% by children, the dependents.
You know what's interesting about that is the pricing schedule for children is low.
Lower than-
And the spouse is very high. And that's an interesting statistic, noting that what it costs to insure kids versus
Adults,
spouse.
yeah.
If the kids are costing
adult.
more, yet charge less.
I was surprised.
Yeah, it's an interesting statistic.
It is, yeah, yep. Let's see, our loss ratio was 100.3%, which means that the total claims that Anthem has paid out were slightly higher than the total amount of premiums that they came in. They generally like to see 70 to 80%. So we're a little higher. By the way, of those 9 high claimants, the top claimant is still very much ongoing. In the most recent month, they had $21,000 in paid medical claims.
Wow.
So that number 6 has an ongoing medication that is costing the plan a little less than $6,000 a month. The others of those, the top 9, a little unclear whether or not they will continue or if whatever their condition or whatever the incident was is gone, except for number 4, and that person is no longer on our plan. So anyway, those are just, pretty much what, what has happened in the last year with Anthem. So the fact is we need to do some things to hopefully help our employees lower their costs and lower our costs. And so looking at several things, also trying to hit those marketing brochures, the information that Anthem has created to let our employees know, to educate them on, the hand-holding that Anthem can do, that they can have a case manager work with them to help them with prescription drugs, to help them with their labs. Where do they need to get their labs so that they're not costing them or trying to cut the costs. Same thing.
Dottie, that was one of the comments someone made, is that our health insurance sucked and that labs were too expensive.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
if we go the correct place, the labs are included in the cost,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we're not
Yeah.
doing a good job,
Evidently not.
obviously, of
Yeah.
telling what the real benefits are.
Right, yeah.
So, okay.
And in July, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but they obviously aren't informed that going forward that that's gonna be a,
Actually, we've had that benefit because one of our employees had told me that they always go to the LabCorp down at, of course, the network has changed a bit, but they always did have it. If they went to the right spot, it would be next to nothing or nothing.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the difference. I mean, now we can go to
Other,
Fairview, where
yes, right.
I don't have time to drive to that.
Yeah, prior, that was, the closest one was really the Walgreens down at DuPont and Tonkel.
but now we can do Parkview if we want. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and,
Before the sale, you can also have the contract.
yes,
with
yeah,
DeKalb,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. Yep. So,
That's something that we need to push insurance trustees to do. I mean, that is their responsibility as the broker to get this information out. They are not doing it.
And tomorrow, I actually have a meeting with our broker and somebody from the corporate entity, the DeKalb Group, to talk about wellness and how we can hopefully, help our employees learn more about the benefits that they have and how they can cut some costs. There's only so much that, I can put out an email, I can post it on our intranet. We no longer have, you can't do payroll stuffers. Back in the day when people actually had paychecks and they had to open up that envelope. I've been around long enough that, people used to have to go to the bank to cash their paycheck, and they had to open up that envelope, and out fell, all the marketing information that we stuffed in there that my payroll clerk in my previous life was like, really, another one? But it was tangible.
Sure.
They had it, and instead, it's another email,
Yep.
And we have honestly had, I remember Lauren had one of an employee from the sheriff's department say, oh, well, I just delete all of those emails because I think they're spam. So there's only so much you can do. You hit your head against a brick wall, and you guys do know that I have 4 brick walls in my office, remember? So I have lots of opportunities to hit my head up against a brick wall. And so since it's now August, we are, we started last month looking at, what can we do to, going forward, what are some things to change about our health plan, and had a very nice meeting last week with Mike and Rick and discussing that sort of thing as you guys had, want us to do, and seeing what else is out there. That's something that I try to run that past insurance trustees. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you guys can provide? I had a company out of, and it was one of those weird things. The person called, was a very pushy, a telephone appointment setter for a very respected insurance company over in Bryan, Ohio, and told me the name. Well, actually, it was the initials, and then gave me the phone number, and I go, you mean? And I told them the name of the company. Yes, how do you know? Well, my parents had insurance with that company for years over in Bryan. And, and it's like, I don't think that you can offer us anything that we can't get from, the brokers that we currently have,
Right.
Available here. And, but, they're pushing, they're looking at things. I don't even know how they got our number, or if they were just calling like everybody on the, on the border. So, anyway, just to kind of let you know that we're looking. And Todd, since you mentioned the survey, the reason I didn't start off with that was I thought that would take up a majority of our time. And I had all these other things I wanted to talk about. But Carolyn, thank you to Carolyn and the IT department about putting that survey together that you guys wanted. And I think the visual is really great, looking at the columns, the silos there. And then lots and lots of comments from our employees that haven't had a chance to go through all of them because, and really digest them, but there are there's a lot of good information there that we can glean, and some things that we'll want to act on, and that's something that we'll need to do in the next few weeks, is, in order for surveys to be effective, you need to get back.
In the drawer.
That's right. We've got to, and we have to let the people who responded, or, the membership, the employees know that, thank you very much. We appreciate this, and these are some things that we're going to do. These are some things we're looking at, and so that they know that it wasn't in vain.
I thought, first go through, I thought there was some good information there, particularly if you read between the lines and sort of take a little deeper dive beyond just the initial rhetoric. I think there are a number of common themes there that are concerning.
Yep. Over and over again, the benefit plan, the insurance. That's one of the things that I've wanted to do for quite some time, is a benefit summary, so that employees, because employees take a look at that, well, they don't look at the paycheck. And some of them don't even look at what happened direct deposit until it's wrong, months later. But let them know what it is that they get.
Right.
And add a dollar figure to those benefits, those holidays, you're not working, but, or for those employees who are working that day, that's double time.
Double pay.
That's double time. Are there other things that we should be looking at? And
Just an itemized
yes,
thing with,
yeah.
with the county's portion of the FICA and the county paid
Yep.
disability and
Oh,
county
yeah.
paid life and all those things. That adds a substantial amount.
It-
I'd love to see a dummy check stub, at $20 an hour and then have all that other stuff added in.
There was one thing that I didn't notice anybody commented on, and I don't remember seeing it in the survey, was free parking to the employees. And that's huge.
That's huge, especially for those people who have ever had to work in downtown Fort Wayne and
my.
have had to pay for parking, which was one of the big concerns when the city came to the commissioners about a parking garage on the county property. It's like, okay, are you going to charge us for parking? And for how many years is it going to be free? And how many spots are you going to allow us to have? That's a biggie. I mean, back in the day, and you've got to remember that had to be over 25 years ago. When I worked in downtown Fort Wayne, it was $45.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a month, for parking at a spot where I had to park umpteen blocks away from the Lincoln Bank Tower and, trudge in, boots and everything to get to the office. But, yeah, that is truly, it's a perk. Free parking.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you happen to park in, the 2-hour parking and you get a ticket. But
Still free.
it's still
Just throw away the ticket.
That's right. Throw away the
Have a
ticket.
department head who allows you to go outside every 2 hours.
Yeah, do a smoking.
Uh,
It used to happen all the time. Everybody worked in Courthouse Square, and the office holders allowed their staff to
Right.
move their
Yeah.
cars.
Right.
So they got that much of a break. Every 2 hours.
Yeah,
Right.
I do believe that still might happen. Yeah, so that's a really good point, John. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I worked in Fort Wayne and had to pay for parking. Our firm now pays for it, but that didn't happen. They were in the minority for that.
Yeah.
And I think they charged employees half and the partners get it all paid for, I think.
Oh, wow.
Now that I think about it.
Jeez. Well, and that is something that I ask every vendor. Hey, is it possible to do this? And one of the things that we have an issue, or it's a difficulty, is getting that sort of information out of Lao and getting it into a thing. It would have to be a spreadsheet that somebody would then have to do some things with. But then again, we don't track, the short-term disability that we pay for, the county pays for. That's not in Lao, by employee. There are lots of things that aren't in Lao by employee that we would have to then, enter each time. So, I think that's a real value-added thing with vendors who are seeking our insurance in, business.
There's concern about the paid holidays. we're going to take the paid holidays away. We never said we were going to take the paid holidays away. It was a discussion, an idea. And as I look back at when I worked at Harvester, in the 70s was the heyday of the unions.
Oh, yeah.
And we had everything. But we didn't have 13 paid holidays. We had 9. Insurance was better, but that was in a time frame when healthcare was affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very different scenario than today. Vacation is actually about the same. What we got then and what our employees get is just about the same. So, and that, like I say, that was the heyday of the union, and we had it all.
I think in fairness, though, if you were sitting in the room or listening or reading the newspaper version or listening to the minutes, it would have been easy to assume from the conversation, from the discussion, that we were discussing taking a holiday away.
Yeah,
So, yeah, granted,
and we
it
did discuss.
was a discussion,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly
Yeah.
weren't threatening to take it away. But
Mine
but it was a
wasn't
discussion.
discussing taking away, it was just to say, hey, you gotta figure this in total compensation, because you're not working and you're being paid, so that is part of the compensation package. Can I have just 1 minute, because I've actually analyzed this data here.
Sure.
The 2 biggest complaints I heard were the benefits are terrible and the pay needs to be closer to the private sector. That's what I got out of, you can't paint everyone that way, but that's the general flow.
There were a lot of comments.
Paid holidays, the median in the country, in the private sector, is 6 days. 25% of all employees get 0 paid holidays, 0, 25%. But the median's 6, we're 13. That's $1,200 per year perk. Will you put it dollar and cents to work for this entity? At $20 an hour, okay. Average work week, private sector's 42.6 hours, we're 35. That's 380 hours per year more that the private sector works, which is $7,600. Retirement, private, 49% of private gets 0. However, the average is a 3% match on a 401k for retirement. We pay 11% match. I'd have to do the math on that versus what that's worth, but it's really a pension, so it's hard to put a dollar to it. But still, we give 11% versus 3. PTO varies. You look in the private sector, that one's a hard one to match up, but 2 weeks is considered pretty normal now after a full year in the private sector, at least 6 months, but sometimes a year. Health insurance, it's from what I can see, now this is 2019 numbers, this is the newest I can see, but a single person in the private sector pays in $1,300 towards their health insurance. $6,000 is the family number that people pay in. I know on my plan with the county, I'm paying in $5,800 a year, and I have a family plan, so it seems like we're right there with the private sector. Pay, the average pay in DeKalb County is $1,000. The average in our 4-county area is $900. Now, this is private sector numbers. You could do the math to see where we stand in an average position here. A big one, though, I don't think has ever hit is the job security. You'd have to find where we've laid off someone in the history of DeKalb County due to economic environments. And to me, that's a big deal. Especially if you're single mom or dad and you're really relying on your job, knowing that you come to a job that at 8:30 you're not going to get a pink slip saying, hey, stock market crashed, everyone's fired. To me, that's a benefit itself. But if you add all them up, you cannot compare this job to private sector because you would have to unwind and go to private sector norms. And then I think you could say, yeah, $20 isn't enough. Let's go to 25. Another thing is the work week. A lot of people said that, hey, we're not making enough money. I want to be like the private sector. Well, you'd really have to put in at least another 5 hours to be there. It's hard to, yet you're still getting the same benefits as that person putting in the 40 in the private sector. So I think it's really hard to say, hey, we're going to pay like the private sector unless you mirror the private sector's template of what they expect out of, work week and everything else. So
I think we also need to look at, we have employees who are working 40 hours a week, getting the benefits. we have employees working 35 hours a week, getting the same benefits.
Same benefits, yeah.
That seems like that should be a level playing field in my mind.
Although you have to remember that if you work 8 hours or 12 hours or 10 hours, that is exactly what you get in holiday pay
pay,
and
yeah.
PTO.
You also have to remember, you could reduce the number in the workforce with that extra 5 hours. If we've got 60 people on the 35-hour work week, do the math, what that figures out per week, hour-wise, and how many employees, that could actually reduce the employment numbers by attrition probably, of course, not necessarily anybody off, but as they retire or quit.
That's another thing that when we had our lunches with the departments, a lot of departments says, hey, we need more help in this office. Well, would another 5 hours a week
Is your help.
get that work done or not? But if you hire another full-time person at 35 hours and give them benefits versus pay everyone else 5 more,
Right.
you're actually money ahead. The employee's making more money, they're getting more time. But as some people said, hey, they love the 35-hour work week. They love the flexibility. They love being at home. Well, there's a cost to that. And the cost might be lower pay. That's what I'm saying.
There's the give and take.
There's a give and take both ways
Yeah.
on this deal.
And having said that, at the same time, they like that 35-hour work week. Some of those same employees who are complaining, they want a raise.
Yeah, right.
Well, 5 more hours is a raise.
I would think the raise would have to, but that's not our purview, the raises. So but when we create these positions, I think we got to have in mind, hey, this costs money to create this position. It probably ought to be a 40-hour week, But the pay is up to the council. I'm not going to stick my finger. I'm just going to put out some ammunition here,
So I think that, okay, those departments that have department heads that have to come to you for that, I think that is something you guys should discuss with them. But as elected officials, I think it should be up to us whether we want our employees to work that or not. I mean, I currently, if we have a busy time, I tell them, go for it, work the extra time, and then when we don't, then they go back to their 35. But I'm not so sure that, I guess I'm not so sure that you will be able to determine that with the elected offices.
And the
I
thing
think
is,
that's
if you
valid.
can, and the thing is, if you can get them to work, great. And if you don't have to hire more people, but if you come to me and say, hey, we're working 35 and I need to hire 2 more people, I'm going to say, well, to get in line again with the private sector, if that's our
And
goal.
I get that.
Then let's kick them up to 40,
Yeah, I totally get that.
I hate to add another 2 people and then, when times get slow to say, well, we don't have a lot to do. Yeah, and I know everyone usually has something to do. There's always something.
And people never want to reduce
No.
their,
No, no.
And I get that.
you've given that,
And I get
they
that.
don't want to take it away. Yeah.
When there's one more thing we haven't discussed, and that is courthouse hours, availability to the public.
Yeah.
I think we are shortening the public the opportunity, and I hear complaints about this. I can't make it in by 4:30, or I can't,
And I hear that
yeah.
fairly frequently too.
And that's what, and to me, that should be actually the driving force.
But I
If we go to
don't,
40-hour work week. And-
well, I think that can easily be done with the scheduling and without going to 40 hours. I think all the elected officials and department heads can manage
That's the
that
next,
schedule.
that's the next roadblock, though, maybe, is getting the elected officials, because that would be up to them. And then we've got this flex in the courthouse hours, and how does security and so forth is going to have to adopt to that, which isn't impossible, but as long as it's a
Another thing that concerns me is a little animosity. We already have it between departments a little. If you say, hey, my office is gonna work 35 and this office says they're gonna work 40, well, I wanna work over there, they're working 35, or the uniform would be better for that aspect, but I get Susan's point directly. Why don't you let me control what I need? I agree with that to a point. The point becomes if we overhire then and we're paying everyone salaries and benefits, we just have to have good discernment, and we got to work together on this. All departments need to work together.
I agree. And I know Rick's got something to say here, but I'm going to just throw this in first. I think if you look at all of that data from one notch higher level, an issue, one issue is communication. Another issue is that the team doesn't feel valued from the top down. And I think that solves a lot of those issues that are being specified in the comments.
Just want to point out the fact that the council has discussed many times over the last several years that rather than hiring additional employees, we would increase their hours by that 5 hours. We've always thought that's always been in our mind. And we've done that with the surveyor's department. But no one else has ever come to us and said, we need additional help or we need additional hours.
Yeah,
So most of them have done just what Susan has done. If there's a busy time, ramp up, you've got that extra 5 hours. When the busy time is over, come back down to 35. Because we understand that, if we hire additional employees, that increases the number of benefits that we have to pay,
Right.
which is the real expense there. So that's always been in our mind. As far as the courthouse hours, that's something that with the current employees that they have, they can stagger the workers. You can have some people come in late and stay late. You have others come in early and leave early. We've done that for years in the hospital. You ramp up for the busy time, down for the slower time. Not everybody's going to, you can open up at 8 o'clock and you're not going to get a big influx of people. So you have fewer employees here during that 8 to 9 hour. And then between 4 and 5, you keep people here, but you're not going to have a big influx there either. A smaller number of people can handle it. So, but that's up to them and how they want to schedule. So.
Yeah, I think the logical approach to that, if we want to set longer courthouse hours, is we get together with the elected officials and the department heads and say, here's what we'd like to accomplish. How are we going to do it?
That was just my very thought, and I was going to bring that up also. Who sets courthouse hours? Commissioners.
Yeah.
But
So I think we
who
really
sets
need-
the office hours for the auditor or the clerk? That's that department head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
We control the
So they'd
building,
have
but
to
they
fill
control
those
their
courthouse
office.
hours, one way or another. Right?
But
I don't think- I think
the
the
issue you've
elected
got
of-
is something that, we had it when I was at the city. We had it with the clerk treasurer's office. They close at 4 o'clock, had the same issue. Allen County's got it, Noble County, everyone has got that hours that the departments are open.
But I think the elected positions, like, I think you guys can choose to have the courthouse open 8 to 5. I can choose to only have my department open 8:30 to 4:30. I think us elected officials can choose our own office hours, and if we want to lock up, we can lock up and go.
Yeah, so the solution to that is to get everybody around a table and figure out if we can get everybody on the same page.
And the other part about that is the longer hours you have the courthouse open, the more you're going to have security, which will be increase in lots of overtime for them at this current stage that they're in.
Yeah, their level of staffing.
No, I understand.
Yep, yeah.
The other
Well-
thing.
That could change.
The other thing I wanted to say about the holidays is I think that a lot of the comments and stuff were because you were waiting for that survey before you would approve what was suggested for the 23 holidays. So in the employees' minds, because they ask me all the time, have they adopted yet? Have they adopted yet? So in their minds, they're thinking you're waiting to see what they say there to decide whether you're going to remove some of these holidays or not. So that's another part of it and something else that does need to be.
Also, in the back of some of our long-term employees' minds is the fact that there were 2 election days during election years that county employees had. We had a few who actually worked those days on the election, worked the polls. And so they're still thinking, okay, those were taken away. Yeah.
But obviously that was a no-brainer. Take those election day away. I mean, if we're going to complain about that, we could just about complain about anything, you know?
Well, one thing about the hours, the adding 5 hours. Chris Gaumer's department now has a code enforcement official, work a maximum of 10 hours a week. And one of my suggestions was, because the way the ordinances were all written, it seemed like the health department was really the driver of all of those code enforcement things, and our 3 inspectors, health inspectors, work 35 hours a week. And if they had worked each 5 hours more per week, up to 40 hours a week, that was 15 more hours that in that department that could have, instead of, now granted, we don't have to pay benefits for this very, very part-time person, and we're very happy to have him. He does a really great job, but we also have to think about work comp and unemployment. So there are those benefits that most people don't think of as benefits, which is what I would put on a compensation report. But, so that was discussed at one point in time.
Not only
And
that, when
it
you add
wasn't-
another employee, the first 9,000 is taxed on the federal FUTA and the SUTA. And like you said,
Yeah.
and along with workman's comp, every person you add adds
It adds,
significantly to
yeah.
those categories.
Right, yeah.
There would be an issue with the health department based on what you've said, because right now, the one who's in charge of inspections of food establishments, including for the fair and stuff, doesn't have time to hit them all in a year as it is now.
Yeah.
At 35 hours a week.
And when they get complaints about conditions of housing, it goes to me and then it goes to Chris. So they're already doing a lot of that stuff, and I'm not sure how it would work adding to the burdens of the health department people.
Well, we took care of it. We now have a code enforcement official, so, in Chris's department. So. Yep.
Anything else on the subject?
I have a feeling there'll be much more discussion.
I am sure, yes.
Good luck, council.
This is one of
We want
those.
to put together a roundtable of, excuse me, Rick. Podium.
Rick, you gotta come up to the,
You got to be on the official record.
Yeah. Just remember, a lot of those things that they consider as being perks, like the 35-hour week or the different paid holidays, was given to them because we couldn't afford to increase their wages to compete with the private sector. So it was given to them for a reason. Now, some of those reasons may not exist anymore, but the perk or the benefit does exist. And so if we're going to change that, we got to remember why we did it and maybe give a compensation in a different way. And the council is looking at that. We've had the wage study done. Hopefully, we'll be able to address the inequities in the per hour or salary pay for 23. I hope. We'll see.
And again, if you can put a dollar value on the current perks, versus I think that helps.
And the report that Dottie wants to provide for all the employees is something I'm used to having for 30 years.
Sure, right.
We got one of those in our end of the year paycheck every
Yeah.
year. We had that and we could see it. And for exactly the same reasons that Dottie wants to show it to our employees.
Visible paycheck,
Yes,
It really is.
don't forget that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's probably a must.
Yeah, I think we need to have that data.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
'Cause I don't think
definitely
they
on
just
my,
don't realize or understand what this costs
Yeah.
and what the benefits are of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, just the county share of the insurance would be a real eye-opener.
right. And, we try to communicate that with employees at open enrollment on the page 2 of that benefits summary booklet. It's, what the employees per pay, and then their yearly, and what the county pays per year. I think most of the employees are looking at, what's it going to cost me? Of course, that's the bottom line for them.
Okay. Anything else for Dottie?
Are you ready to do the county holidays, or are you waiting?
I'm good with approving them.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll second him being
I'll approve
good.
them as submitted earlier, the 13.
motion, second? Motion and second to approve the county holidays. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Dottie.
You're welcome.
Have a good
Dottie,
one.
have a good one.
Stay dry. Is it raining out?
All right.
Let's keep it good, because I'm camping.
Okay, we are down to next is the Pokabachi Trail Resolution Interlocal Agreement. Comments?
I wish that group was here. I just had a couple questions. One of them was on.
They are.
Oh,
Some of them
okay.
are here.
All right. Well, yeah.
We're here.
The purpose of the resolution is to agree in concept that you would like to belong to this group. The signing of the actual agreement, though, is probably weeks, if not months away, because you've got 11 different municipal and county organizations that have to come up with the same language and be in agreement. So we are quite a ways away from doing that. I believe, did they do Allen County? Resolution. In Allen County, but is that the only county that's been done? I think the city of Auburn is later this month, and as is Wells and Bluffton and Steuben and Angola. They're in Steuben today? Yep. All right, so it's a ways away, but we would like to have the resolution to keep us moving forward. And the dollar amount, I think that's probably going to always be the one big issue in there is the dollar amount. The dollar amount has not been set. It will be requested once the agreement is signed and all the municipalities and county organizations come together and determine, number one, if money is actually needed to support this group. Right now, we've all been meeting on a voluntary basis. We do have an economic impact study that's being done where we have asked for donations, or we've applied for grants to pay for that. We did get one, we've got 2 grants already, one from a Greenway group and one from one of our local foundations here. They're still seeking money, but again, individual requests for expenses that might occur, but it'll be determined by this group once this group is formed. And of course, everybody has to be in agreement that would be the dollars that would be given.
Well, I don't think everyone would have to be in agreement.
Well,
Just
the
a
majority would have to
Okay,
be.
Yeah.
And there is a provision that to easily walk away from this group at any time without any penalty.
With a year.
So-
Yeah, I read that.
Given the anticipated structure of this whole project, I mean, from a higher level, if there is any budget at all for this group, it would be minimal anyway.
Very minimal.
It's not,
Because each one of
I mean,
the,
this-
each
this-
one of the sections of the trail is going to be individually managed, whether it be by a municipality, by a county, either through like a park department or something like that, or in some of the other larger trails that we have in Indiana, there are private, not-for-profit groups that cover that and you go for grants and things.
That was a question I had that, I like the idea of the trail system, how it works and stuff, but I don't quite understand the maintenance of it going forward. Like, okay, this charity's gonna take care of this half mile, this one's gonna take care. It almost seems like it'd be nice if we could have just have the county function of maintaining this trail just like we do our roads versus trying to get 50 different organizations.
And that's a possibility, Todd.
No.
That's a possibility, but that's
Call it
for,
what it is what I'm
that's
saying.
for each individual area to determine. The Cardinal Trail has a private foundation that covers the entire Cardinal Trail, 66 miles.
Which foundation covers that, do you know?
It's a Cardinal, the Cardinal
what's that
Trails.
mean?
It was formed for
Yeah.
that purpose.
Okay, so they have their own group.
They have their own group. In that particular case, a private set of investors came out and bought the entire rail line.
Oh, they bought
It
it.
runs from, truthfully, Marion all the way to Richmond. There is a section between Marion and Gaston, which is a short distance that does not run on the rail line. But from Gaston to Richmond, it is on the rail lines. And that private foundation covers the maintenance of that trail. Then you've got the nickel plate, which runs from Rochester to Kokomo. That has a private foundation. And the Panhandle Pathway that goes from Winnemac down to Logansport has an organization. Now you go over to Kendallville and Noble County and Elkhart County, you've got different park departments that are covering theirs, depending on where it goes through. And I'm involved in another group that's not part of this, that Dr. Gaff is trying to arrange or put together between LaGrange, DeKalb, Noble, and Steuben. But there's a whole different concept. They're having the governments take care of everything.
I guess my point on that is if we're gonna do this and do it right, I'd like to see it maintained correctly also
Well,
going
and-
forward. Have something more definitive, and I know this is tough to put together. You're trying to acquire land here, get right-of-ways here, and it's tough. I'm just saying I'd like something a little more concrete going forward. And I have no problem with this agreement per se. At first, I thought this agreement was open-ended funding of the trails. We'll just let you know how much the bill is. We're only talking about a board here and it says maybe an executive director. I assume the pay is going to be very minimal. And like I said, I think most of you folks that want these trails are doing it for the good of the community.
Right.
You want to see trails. There's not financial gain being on a board or heading it up. So I don't have a problem with the agreement. I just wanted to.
Most of
specify going forward.
How to put this, most of the financing, most of the maintenance as you're talking about is going to have to be worked out with the individual municipality or county or private group. And this group would be somebody that would help direct that, not require it, not say this is how it's going to be done or this is who's going to do it, but to try to coordinate everybody so that we're all working towards the same endpoint.
Right.
More like a steering committee then.
More like that, you're right.
Good.
Any other comments?
No,
No.
just the
The
resolution.
resolution.
Got to pass a resolution in order to enter the agreement, correct?
Yeah, comes first.
Yeah, and then,
After
That's-
all these attorneys.
Right. That's
Review
what I'm
it.
saying.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And our county attorney has assured me that the attorney that put it together is pretty good, that there might not be a lot of changes.
Yeah, I will readily admit I couldn't have written it better.
John put a lot of work into that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of discussion among the group too. That he made a lot of tweaks. So I think it's a good agreement.
Now, for what I had him do for me, I may have paid more of an hourly rate because he was doing this free. I'm not sure.
Well, I didn't
was kidding.
realize that John was such a bike rider, and he's braver than I am. He lives in southwest Allen County and frequently rides over to Ohio. I don't ride on county roads anymore. It's too
I
dangerous.
agree.
Is that
Is
right?
the Greenhurst Trails, the old Greenhurst Golf Course, that's not part of this?
No.
But they have their
That's a
own-
private
It's
group.
private, but I know
It's
they have
open to the
signs.
public. Yeah, it's open to the public.
But they have signs saying, okay, if you want to go downtown, go this way. So if you look at the sign, they're very
Right.
nice signs by my house that tell you where to go. So,
Is that resolution number 11? 10?
I have a concern entering into any agreement when the general public reads this, that we are moving ahead on trails of any degree. The general public that lives in the county, on a county road, my phone's going to be ringing off the hook. Why trails? Why not my road? I think we need to come up with an idea, a plan. At the same time as we talk about this trail issue, is how we're going to funnel more money into road maintenance. Because it's going to be, I'll give them your phone number.
Right, and my phone number is on the county website.
The only thing is, they don't call you. They will call me.
I
They will call
get
Ben.
phone calls too, Bill, but,
And
I agree with you. And, this is one of the reasons that because of what was written in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago about the wheel tax, about the gravel roads and all of this, that's why the council had this on their agenda in July, and it will be back on the agenda in August. I've asked Jeff Peters, our financial consultant, to give us an estimate of what money can be generated from a wheel tax, and this is an education for most of the council. There are several of them, like Bill Van Wy, who has actually been on there, as have I, and voted it down a couple of times, but some of the other ones don't know all of the particulars. So we're going to get the information as to how much money can be generated, in what fashion. I did not realize or didn't remember that it's actually 2 different taxes, not one.
Right.
There is one for the larger vehicles, the wheel tax, and then there's a vehicle tax.
Yeah.
Would be for the passenger type things. So hopefully we'll have that information at the next council meeting, which is the 9th or the 14th. I'm not sure what the date is. The 9th. So we'll have that information. The one thing I tried to make clear on those people that have contacted me is that if we do this, it is strictly for the roads themselves, because I don't want anybody to confuse the fact that we're looking at a wheel tax because of the highway garage issue. That these two are completely separate. When we did our State Board of Accounts exit interview, I asked the State Board of Accounts to get me information as to whether or not the wheel tax funds could be put in a separate account, so that we did keep them separated. I have not gotten an answer back from them yet, but again, if we were to consider it, and I'm not saying that we would pass or not pass it, but if we were to enact it, I would want it to be in a separate fund where it cannot be intermixed with the highway garage issue, because I think that muddies the waters on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And I've also asked Ben to get me a list of the roads, or where the majority of the roads are by township. See if I can, because it's one thing to put, to pave all the roads around, say, Auburn, Garrett, Waterloo, the more urban areas. But quite honestly, people in Troy Township might not want their roads paved. And when we do start paving roads, you have to realize that you're liable to increase some of the other costs, maybe not to the county, but with the increase of population in some of these areas, there's going to be an increased need for fire coverage. And we've already got fire departments that can't fully staff because there aren't volunteers available. So all of these issues have to be considered. You put houses out there, you've got more bus routes going through there, you got to pick up more kids. So all of these things need to be considered, not to say that the road shouldn't or should not be paved, but you need to at least think about those things.
We get requests, not very many requests, to leave my road as dirt, or gravel, I should say. We get, and I've got a list of 3 or 4 right now that's requesting, and they qualify. They have a high density of population on those roads. Like one of them's 19 houses in a mile, and it's asphalt on both ends of this 1 mile road. It goes strictly, it's the only dirt within this
Yeah, that doesn't make
5 mile
any
radius,
sense.
basically. Yeah. And so that's a good candidate. And we have those, and we can work our way down the list but we're just not able to do hardly anything because of the increased cost, for one thing, and the cost it takes to convert these roads. And And we have to do them right. We can't do them half right because they won't hold up.
Right, no,
They'll just come
and all
apart.
of those points are understood, and
Yeah.
all of those points need to be made to the council
According
when they look at this. But again, the wheel tax is something that has come up, not annually, but every few years, and it has always been voted down by the council.
I have another question, and it's kind of an idea that I've been thinking about, and it has to do with the solar farm, the big solar farm. If they're granted a rebate and there's a redevelopment kickback off of that rebate, can that money be funneled into the road maintenance?
I don't know.
That, I think that would be a long-term income for roads without raising taxes. without doing
I
wheel
do
tax.
not know. That's a question that, start off with sending that to the county attorney and the council attorney to see if it's even permissible by state law. And if it isn't, and if that's something you want to consider, we need to talk to Ben or whoever our state senator will be after the election in November. Although I would suggest it be Ben, because they'll start introducing legislation for the new session beginning of December anyway. So that may be too short of a time for whoever is the newly elected senator to get anything done.
My understanding that those economic development agreements with the renewable energy firms can be committed to virtually any account that everybody agrees to and that will pass State Board of Accounts muster. So if we wanted to take one of the solar EDAs and say, okay, this money is going to the road construction fund, it's completely kosher to do.
The only thing that I would request in that respect is that you only commit that portion of the economic development agreement funds that were going to go to the county.
Yeah.
Because we've already committed that if we're giving tax abatement, then the economic development money would be given to the affected taxing units in the same proportion that they would have gotten from their taxes on that particular property. But however you want to commit the money for the county portion, I don't think the county would, or the council would care, myself.
Yeah. And I think that would be.
But I think you'd also
wise-
need to say, okay, if that is in Wilmington Township, that maybe those funds for those roads ought to be dedicated to Wilmington Township, not to Butler Township, miles away. But that's something you guys can work out.
Well, and I think, once we get down to the point where we're looking at real numbers on this thing, and of course, with the council's new worksheet on abatement and how all that falls into place, the numbers are going to probably end up a little different. But with the size of those developments, the EDAs are going to generate, I think, some pretty substantial funds that would be a real benefit to the.
And with the new worksheet that we have, realize that the council will now have better information than we've ever had in what that actual tax abatement is, what that dollar amount is. We've never truly had that number before. We now will have at least a decent estimate of what that is. So, and the other thing that I would caution us on, and this could go anywhere in January, but the push has been over the last few years to do away with the personal property tax. That is the funds that we are abating when we abate a solar field. Well, if that tax goes away, we have nothing to abate. So we have to be careful about that. Now, I personally don't know. I don't think it will be successful to do away with it, at least not in total in the near future. But there will be those that still want that to happen.
It's going to be.
And it'll be a constant battle.
Isn't 30% of our revenue as the
33.
county?
33% of our budget is from personal property
That's
tax.
after it's already been kind of hacked away, because I think you get an exemption under
Yeah,
$80,000.
well,
of
it's, I think
personal,
that
and
grew. They've increased that every year.
every year that gets
Yeah,
increased.
that's
Okay.
gone up.
Okay.
So,
I think it's around 80 or 90,000.
Hundred-
Yeah.
120,000.
Oh, is it that much
yeah,
now?
yeah, it's
Okay.
gone up. It's gone up. And again, it's because they want to do away with it. But there is one school district in central Indiana that 70% of their budget comes from personal property. So I don't think you're going to do away with personal
School
property.
district? Really?
Yeah.
They'd
So-
have to replace with some,
Yeah,
with something.
and that's been the
Income
County
or
Council
sales or something.
Association's issue right along is, okay, if you're taking this away from us,
Have to.
where are we going to make it up and how are we going to make it
Yeah,
up? And
it'd have
we've
to be.
not gotten an answer.
Well,
So-
there are only just, what, 5 counties that have the potential problem with, if they lose it. We're one of them, except we got the bond issues paid off for
Right,
both
and
SDI.
that's a
that's-
similar,
That's
but
steel
not,
mill.
that's a
a
similar, but
different
not a
thing, though.
same issue.
Okay.
Because that's the
That's
moving it
moving.
from pool 4 to pool 5 for depreciation.
They're talking about getting rid of the whole structure, and that's a whole different
The
ballgame.
the good thing that came from that is that the DLGF has decided that it only applies to the steel manufacturing portions of the business. Initially, the
subsidiary.
thought was it was going to apply to every subsidy owned by that business, which in our case was quite a bit. So, anyway,
Anyway,
I think we're
it's-
getting sidetracked from the purpose of being here,
It's,
although we haven't used our 45 minutes yet.
You're still sidetracked. We got things to do.
So, I would be much more concerned about your point, Bill, if we were actually committing any funds to trails right now. All we're doing is committing to cooperating with Wells County and Allen County and Steuben County in trying to come up with a plan and assist with grant applications and things like that.
Understand,
So,
understand.
given that, I'm going to move that we approve Resolution 2022-R-10.
On it.
Neither did I.
And with that motion, I will say that I've gotten a lot of phone calls, both pro and con, and probably about as many that think we should be developing trails as are opposed to it. So I think there are a number of taxpayers in the county that are in favor of having a trail system.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
My numbers don't run even close to even what I'm hearing.
It matters who you
And the
represent, too.
bottom line with me is the concern of the perception of the public of money going to the trails, not enough money going to highway. And you can explain it, and we've already seen how things are perceived out of context. And that's my concern. So I would not second it. But
Well, if I may just add, and hopefully to help with your issue, Bill, or the issue that you're hearing, is we are not asking for any highway funds. That is not, and you're not going to take general funds
No.
or any of that to build roads. We are not asking for any highway
build
funds.
trails?
To build trails.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
so,
Now, this is not a funding organization at all.
Yeah.
I mean, other than,
that,
you
you
come
can
up
say
with-
that here, but
yeah.
It
All general
depends on how
public is-
Andy writes it.
it's, well, let's be honest, it's a foot in the door to get the trails going, which means there'll be expense. But I understand the point of this group putting it together, saying, hey, we got to at least agree that trails are a good idea and we'd like to pursue it. At that point, if they come in and say, hey, we need $9 million out of DeKalb County, then I say, hey, we don't have it. But,
And this resolution it will help them to be able to go for the grants.
Go for
so
the
they don't
grants and
have
this
to
and
come
that.
Get money.
so I don't have a problem with it. One thing I do have a concern about, you brought up, I don't ride on the county roads either. I don't even like to ride on Morningstar Road. Yeah, well, people are
That's
crazy.
dangerous.
Yes, it's exactly right.
But the problem I see going forward is we do this interconnector trail or whatever, and I understand that, it goes from one point to another. But let's say I'm a mile and a half down a busy county road, and I don't want to ride my bike. I gotta load my bike in my truck, find a parking spot, get it out. Is the next step then saying, now we need to make the trail go from there to Butler, from Butler to,
Actually, that has come up, Todd, and it has been addressed with several of the members that are on this current voluntary group. Garrett has made that request. St. Joe has made that request. Hamilton primarily has made that request. And we have determined that because the spine is the most important part, that we would work on the spine first and then those offshoots from the spine to these other outlying communities, which is one of the things that Dr. Gaff is trying to get going over in Noble County, is how do we connect, say, Waterloo and Kendallville. Kendallville's already connected to Goshen. How do we make these other moves? But that has to be a secondary issue. This has got to be the
does
primary.
that trail go from Kendallville to Goshen?
Yeah.
Does it
I
really?
think the Fish Line or one of those.
Fish line.
And then LaGrange County, they have one that's going on an old New York Central track. And they're actually, and this is one case where, be careful how I say this, the Amish have been a very big benefit to development of trails in LaGrange County because they realize how much safer it is for their young people to ride their bikes and be on these trails and not on the road. So they've had a lot of success there.
This north-south main connector for, well, not just for DeKalb County, but all the way from Bluffton to
Hagen.
Pokagon is an emphasis at the state level too. I mean, they are really pushing to have these completed. And, given the other systems and what we've been able to come up with informationally at our coalition meetings, I mean, there's been a huge buy-in from all the trail systems that are developed now, the Cardinal and the Pumpkin Vine and all of the greenways in Allen County. So, I can't believe that DeKalb County taxpayers are that far removed from the thinking in the other surrounding counties.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I don't know that I would put that on the taxpayers as much as the people pushing for the trail. And again, I'm fine with the trails, but I'm just saying I wouldn't put words in the taxpayer's mouth
Wow.
because the average person has no clue where their tax money's going. They just know they think they pay too much. So,
Yeah.
And the trails that are currently existing in DeKalb County, and I won't speak to the one in St. Joe, but the Auburn Waterloo Trail, the Waterloo Extension, what was the Safe Routes to School piece of this, have all been done with government grants, not
Right.
with DeKalb County or even, I think Auburn did build their own
Yes.
with taxpayer funds, but all these other ones have been built with grant money.
I was talking to Mayor Yoder, and maybe you would know more, the nice trail that runs from North Street all the way to Betts Road. That's beautiful.
Right.
I believe Mayor Yoder said he received some grant money to build that. He says.
He might have gotten some, I don't remember.
Everything. He says you got to be ready to jump.
Yeah.
The timing's everything. And he says there's deals out there, but.
But there's the case where the driver there was Steve Bruns, the city engineer.
Oh, okay.
And Steve did a lot of the design himself because you got to be careful. Some of these grants that you go for have such onerous requirements on them with federal money that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you never. comply.
The one federal grant, you could actually drive a semi on the trail. Not, it's far beyond what is
Right.
necessary. You don't need to build it to the road standard.
Right.
But, so Steve was able to make some adjustments and apply for the right money accordingly.
What's the match on state grants?
80/20.
I think 80/20 is the normal, but I suppose there are ones that are different matching
That's-
dollar amounts.
Just wanted to clarify.
But I mean, knowing what we know about most of the other trail systems in the state, I can't imagine that any substantial part of this would be built with taxpayer funds. It's,
Yeah. No, and there are a lot of non-government grants out there. Indiana's got a Greenways Foundation that has grants. There's Rails to Trails nationally that has grants. There are plenty of opportunities, but you gotta be there at the right time with the right request to be able to get those monies.
and as Susan said, this interlocal agreement, once it gets completed, will certainly help score the grants much higher
Right.
for
Read.
being awarded than if it was just, small city or single county trying to do it on their own.
Well, it is, I'm very concerned, like Bill, like I said, on our roads, getting proper funding for them. That's a separate issue. But I'm intrigued enough to second the resolution to take this further and see where this goes, knowing that we don't financially commit. We got to see what's in the box, Let's see what's in the box, and if we like it, let's move forward. If not, we'll jump out.
Yeah, I just, there was a comment that was made when we had the presentation last week or the week before, that there would be the opportunity to get out of it if you didn't like how it was going. This resolution has language to that effect. I'd have worded one part of it a little differently. It's the last whereas clause in what you're asked to sign today says, whereas the DeKalb County, I assume is what's going to go in there, desire to participate in the interlocal agreement for the Pokabachi Connector Trail, approve the form of interlocal agreement attached to this resolution as Exhibit A, and further authorizes the execution of the interlocal agreement for the connector trail, all pursuant to Indiana code, subject to approval by council, and also subject to the approval and agreement of the other participants. I'm assuming that means all of the other participants. That was said at the meeting, because they said if we don't get everybody on board, we're not gonna go forward. The other thing that I like that protects us is there's a provision in there saying at the end of each calendar year, if we don't like how it's going, we can withdraw from it. And the only thing we have at risk is what we've contributed in the past and what we've contributed already in the current year that we're withdrawing.
And of course, the problem with that, and I appreciate that verbiage because it does give us an out, but can you imagine 10 others stay in and we go out, the lambasting we would take saying, oh, you destroyed the trail. So you're in, let's just face it, you're in with the other 10 if you go in on this, unless there's something really awry, and then you say, hey, this doesn't make sense.
Had you asked me that question, that's the response you would have gotten.
But I did appreciate that. I appreciated the out in the contract. That makes me very comfortable with it. But let's face it, when you get into something like this, if you're the odd man out, you're going to catch hell. That's all there is to it.
This trail is really part of the DNR's what's the technical term? Next visionary trail system. If DNR changes next year or 5 years from now, the whole thing may be gamunked anyway.
Yeah, you never know. That's my second. I'll second that we sign the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? Anyone? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Aye.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you very much for your time and consideration and for the approval of the resolution.
Have a good day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Are yours, sir?
Just a party pooper.
What's that?
I'm just a
You're
party pooper.
Well, like I said, we're not out anything at this point.
I wouldn't say you are at all. I think
You had a good opinion.
you've got your own
And
approach to things, and you're entitled to that.
Appreciate that.
I agree.
And we need that amongst.
We need different ideas, guys. If we all just sit here and say yes,
Yes,
or
yes,
we all
yes.
say no, and there's some give and take to this.
Yeah.
And like I said, let's see what's in the box. If we don't like it, we'll seal the box back up and send it back.
I don't see it as all,
And you had the same issue and you handled it the same way you're talking about, and it's going forward with your opposition to the bot, and then study more, think more, it helps to have different viewpoints
Absolutely.
come to the table.
And I don't
then
see
you
it-
get a consensus.
and I don't see it as all bad.
No.
Yeah, it's just that,
Yeah.
I know what, I'm just afraid of the perception.
Yeah,
of the
and we
public
gotta
the
do
phone.
something with our roads, that's all there is
We
to
got
it.
to, and
And,
that's-
we're gonna have a first-class highway department, we need a first-class road system.
Yeah, I like the idea of looking at committing solar economic development money to that.
I'll tell you why it's a good plan too. Usually when you develop an area like a huge farm, 1,000, 2,000 acres, you make industry, you need improvements to the road, the infrastructure has to improve, and it takes general funds to do that. This adds no burden at all really to the county government cost. So you should be able to use that funds on specialty projects because you're not burdening any department or any entity.
There's a possibility of burdening the highway department, but that's where you have to have the thing that Ben's been talking about and Chris talked about.
But it doesn't burden that's what I'm talking about.
Well, they
doesn't-
tear up the roads with what they're bringing in, but they agree to repair them all.
Well, yeah, and the construction, I'm just saying, long-term,
Long-term general.
this adds no cost to the county, so why not use it for pet projects instead of dispersing it over all departments? This is exactly why I like this program, so, and this would be great, we could pave miles of roads with this money, so.
Larry, you got something else for us?
Yep, real quick.
Morning, Larry.
Morning.
Long time no see.
I talked to Willie, and he said that we could do that. There's only one problem, and it's not a big problem. That stuff comes in 12-foot pieces.
Rip it out.
He said, so we'll have to put a break. He said that porch is 14 feet.
Break it down the middle.
So he'll break it. He said, I'll make it look good, but he said that's the only problem that there will be. But I said, I think that's going to be fine.
I did the same thing with my porch, 16 feet, no. Yeah, 24 feet. No, it's not, it's 16. I broke it in the middle, double J back to back. It looks great. The nice thing about that, when you do the porch first, you have cutoffs. Those cutoffs can go up in the soffits
Right.
because they're going to be short.
Yeah.
You can use up that
Didn't think
material.
about that. Use that
Otherwise,
extra
you can
material.
end up with a lot of waste.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
Good plan.
I do have a firm price.
Okay,
So, to do the soffit and underneath the porch was 12.2. And to do the, I don't know what, the vertical
vertical.
Fascia.
would be 8.4, 8,400.
So 20 grand for the whole thing, a little over
Yeah.
20 grand, 21.
21, about 21.
I have no idea if that's a good bid or not. I've been so far removed from that type of stuff for so long. Do we go to Mr. Weinbrenner, whoever else, and take a bid before we authorize or not? I mean, it was a request. We did say to go ahead with the project, but we didn't, now we have firm costs. Maybe it's time to let someone else in, or what's your thoughts, guys?
Give me that number again.
12.2 and 8.4.
12.2 does the soffits and the porch underhang, and then 8,400 to do the fascia.
Right.
26 total.
Is there additional if there's problems up under that porch?
Yes.
In the original.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Like rotted wood or something?
Yeah.
That's pretty standard though,
Yeah.
clause.
Because they don't know what's underneath there once they open it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that 12.2 and the 84 actually is no
Yeah, that's what it was.
different on
That was
that.
pretty much what was submitted before.
Yeah.
I think we're far enough down this road that
do it.
Just do it.
I really think you already
Yeah, you
authorized
can,
it.
you don't have to bid it or.
Yeah.
Well, we authorized it, but he said he would get us firm because we were saying, well, what about that material? What about that material? So I'm good with just going with it. I just want to make sure we're treating
I'll talk
everyone
to Dave
fair.
and
And I did talk to Dave, by the way.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that. You got the colors?
I'm
You
fine.
got the color splotches?
Yep.
You're good there?
that deep purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the red,
Yeah,
It's on the pink.
purple and green. Anything else on that? Question, Larry.
I want a motion to official.
Okay. I make a
We'll
motion,
do
we
the same
accept the,
thing. We agree.
we accept the quote as Larry's presented for 8,412,200 as presented.
Second.
A motion and second. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are good to go. Larry, the auction, Little John, where are we at on that?
I talked to him, we went and looked at everything. As far as the basement was concerned, he goes, really, he said, you're not going to, by the time you spend the time taking it out of the basement, putting it somewhere,
Categorize it.
you're going to be upside down in it. He is very interested in the bicycles that are down there in the Holman building. He said those would be something that would be good to go up for auction. I was going to check on those, but certain people are not at the sheriff's department or haven't been seen for a while, so I can't find out what I need to find out. Okay?
Why do we have bicycles?
They
Bikes that are recovered.
recovery, like picked up off the side of the road.
I wondered the same thing.
Yeah, different things like that.
Came to the sheriff's department?
Yeah.
Okay.
Auburn PD always has a line of them
Yeah.
when they have their auctions.
They used to have a bike rodeo too when I was a kid, and you got a sticker on your bike to say you were safe.
You were never safe.
I'll see if I can get you a phone call.
So,
Theater seats was another item you
Oh, yeah.
thought would sell.
yeah.
Yeah, those
So-
were pretty nice.
We ought to just-
Susan, are there any more chairs like you found in the basement down there?
I don't think so. I took them all.
She found some beautiful chairs down there that, those chairs would be $500 each if you had to buy them somewhere. They're beautiful. So if there's any more
I
nuggets
think they
down
were
there,
old. I think they're old juror chairs.
they're cool.
I dug for them.
I think we need to clean that basement out, clear it out.
Yeah, maybe let employees take a walk through and
Yeah.
let them take what they want
Yeah.
and scrap the rest of it.
Within
Just get
reason,
rid of
yeah.
it.
Can we do that? I think we can do that.
I'd like to walk down there after we,
You think
Yeah.
we can do that?
after we're done and really take a look and say, and make sure that stuff really has
What
no
else
value.
we
But
gonna
I
do?
like your idea. Might as well give it to employees or whoever wants it versus throw it in the dumpster. That's just a waste. Someone could use it.
We could have a pick-free day,
Yeah.
dumpster pick-free day. It's either you take it home with you or it's going in the dumpster. And start hauling it out of there.
And you have to haul it out regardless, so you might as well take it.
So,
And I
yeah,
think you should probably do it on non-operating hours, so there's no complaint
Oh, absolutely.
that they were working and they couldn't do it.
no, do it Saturday.
Yeah.
Do it Saturday, obviously, right? Yeah.
Okay. So I'll get with Susan, we'll set that up and,
Let's get a date. Set it up.
and say, this is what we're gonna do on this date, and
Get her done.
if you wanna be like a garage sale, we're gonna open it up and you can be here between this time and this time, and
You know, something I saw
You might
done,
want security.
something I saw done that I thought was really interesting was an auction to where you weren't auctioning off every individual thing, especially when you auctioned off the ability to pick what you wanted first. So if you bid $100, you get first pick of anything in there and you grab it, next person, and it's the same concept, but it goes a little faster, you know what I'm saying? And someone that really wants something too will pay big for that. Just something that I thought was an
Are we
interesting
still
concept.
gonna sell the bikes or have them be offered to the employees? I don't have a preference.
I would just say whatever's real, definitely valuable that Jim says, hey, this is gonna bring good
Have
money,
him
let
take
him
it
have
before
it.
we set the date
Yeah,
up. I
no.
agree.
Okay,
Then the rest, I think we ought to,
just get,
there's some employees that might find some of the stuff, hey, I need that, you know, it's-
One man's
We need a
junk.
break.
we need a break.
okay.
Let's break.
Are we gonna pay for that from lighted or when it gets done, your normal
Building
24?
maintenance, I assume, the,
24, 60,
24, the administration,
Yeah.
or,
I would think that would be,
64.
yeah, I think that's 60 somewhere.
okay.
Oh, wait, no, that's highway department operations. County buildings, improvement and repairs, number 62. 62,
Okay, thank you.
yep. Thanks for asking. Or just don't pay it.
That's not an option.
Yeah.
Not an option.